Hi everyone. So in previous class we discussed about the tissue culture laboratory and its equipments. In today's session we will be going to discuss about the sterilization and culture media and the preparation of the culture media. Also we will come to know about the growth hormones. Let's begin. So sterilization means what? Sterilization, it is an elimination of microorganisms and which avoids the contamination of the bacteria and the fungi. Basically it is a process that removes, kills or deactivates all the forms of the life. And to maintain an aesthetic environment means a area which is free from the contamination. Okay, so to maintain an area which is free from contamination, all the culture vessels, media and instruments used in handling the tissues as well as the explants must be surface sterilized. Okay, so it is a process in which we can remove or kill the bacteria, is known as the sterilization. And you can see here, these are the sterilization techniques. There are 6 types of sterilization techniques: dry heat treatment, flame sterilization, autoclaving, filter sterilization, vaping with 70% ethanol. This is nothing but by using the solvents. And the last one is surface sterilization. So if we talk about the first one, that is dry heat treatment. So dry heat treatment means, you have guessed it, there is no water here. Okay, so hence there is no water, so the protein hydrolysis can't take place here. So instead, dry heat tends to kill microbes by oxidation of cellular components. So the dry heat, it kills the microbes by using the oxidation process, and this requires more energy than the protein hydrolysis. So higher temperatures are required for the efficient sterilization by the dry heat. For example, the sterilization can normally be achieved in 15 minutes by autoclaving. Autoclaving means what? Autoclaving, which is done by using an autoclave. It is an instrument used to kill the bacteria, viruses, and even some of the spores present in the material. So autoclaving means what? It is done by the instrument or the equipment that is known as the autoclave, and this autoclave is used to kill the bacteria and other viruses, spores which are present on the material or the explants. And as I said, sterilization can normally be achieved in 15 minutes by autoclaving at 121 degrees Celsius. Okay, so the sterilization in autoclaving must be 121 degrees Celsius. The temperature must be 121 degrees Celsius. Whereas in dry heat treatment, it would generally need a temperature of 160 degree Celsius to sterilize in a similar amount of time. Okay, so in a dry heat treatment we will require 160 degree Celsius of the temperature. So hence the dry heat has one of the crucial difference from the autoclaving. So the dry heat treatment as well as the flame sterilization, it requires 160 degrees Celsius of the temperature. Next, if we talk about the autoclaving is nothing but wet heat treatment. So this is very effective method that kills all the microbes, spores and viruses and some specific bugs. Bugs are nothing but insects, by using high temperature or incubation times which are required in this process. And autoclaving means what I said, it is done by using the autoclave. It is a machine used to kill the bacteria, viruses and even the spores. So the autoclaving kills microbes by hydrolysis and coagulations of the cellular proteins. So which is efficiently achieved by the intense heat, and this intense heat comes from the steam. So the intense heat means we can say the pressurized steam has a high latent heat. Latent heat means more heat. Okay, so around 100 degrees Celsius, the autoclave is holding more than 7 times, which is about the room temperature, and hence this heat is liberated on contact with the cooler surface on the autoclave to maintain the heat and good penetration of the dense material. So autoclave means it kills the bacteria by using more latent heat. So latent heat means more heat energy is produced in the autoclave, and hence by this heat or this steam, the bacteria which are present on the surface of the explants or any other culture vessels. Next one, that is filter sterilization. It is nothing but filtration. And this filtration, it is a great way to quickly sterilize the solution without any heating. And we know that filters, of course, they work by passing the solution through the filters with a pore diameter that is too small for the microbes to pass through it. And filters, they can be glass funnels made from the heat fused glasses or the particles, or more commonly nowadays membrane filters made from the cellulose are being used. And for the removal of the bacteria, filters with an average pore diameter of zero point 0.2 micron millimeter. Okay, so the filters average pore of the diameter must be zero point 0.2 micrometer to remove the bacteria. They are used normally in the filtration process. And remember that viruses and phage bacteria can pass through these filters. Filters means a pore diameter of a filter which is having a zero point 0.2 micrometer. So the viruses and bacteria sometimes they can pass through these filters. Okay, so the filtration isn't a good laboratory sterilization technique. And next one, that is whipping with 70% ethanol. So this is nothing but a solvent sterilization technique. So the solvents like ethanol, it is commonly used as a disinfectant. But another solvent, that is isopropanol, it is a better solvent for the fat, and it is probably better option than compared to the ethanol. Okay, so ethanol as well as the isopropanol are some of the solvents which are used in the sterilization techniques. Both the solvents work by denaturing the proteins through the process that requires the water, and so they must be diluted around 60 to 90%, or sometimes 70 to 90% in the water to be effective. So the ethanol and isopropanol must be diluted in the water around 60% to 90% as to get the more effective result. Last one, that is surface sterilization. So this surface sterilization is an essential step in the tissue culture, and the explants that you obtain from the source plant should be completely free from any type of the microorganisms before culturing it on the media. Okay, so some endophytes are also present in the plants. So the microbes that live inside the explants, for the endophyte prevention, you can examine the source plant and the explant before using them for the culture media. And what are endophytes? Endophytes are nothing but they are the bacterium or the fungus that live in the plant. So the explants that you obtain from the source of the plant should be completely free from any type of the microorganisms before culturing it on the medium. So this is how the surface sterilization is done. So these are the few techniques of the sterilization. Moving towards the next slide, that is about culture media. So what is this culture media? So the culture media is basically an aqueous solution to which all the necessary nutrients have been added. Okay, so it is an aqueous solution to which we will add nutrients which are required for the growth of the eggs plants. Okay, so it is an aqueous solution to which all the nutrients are added. This culture media, it is also known as the growth medium. Okay, it is also called as growth medium. It is a liquid or gel designed to support the growth of microorganisms. This growth medium or culture medium, it is an liquid or gel which is designed to support the growth of the microorganisms. And the microorganisms need nutrients also, and a source of energy and certain environmental condition in order to grow and to reproduce. And in the laboratories, these requirements must be met by the culture media only. And there are different types of the media suitable for growing different types of the cells. They are a White's medium, MS medium, B5 medium, N6 medium, and NIST medium. So this White's medium, it was developed by P.R. White in 1963, and this was the earliest plant tissue culture media for the development of the root culture, shoot culture, as well as the callus culture. This medium, it has lower salt concentration and higher concentration of the MgSO4. And the purpose of the White's medium is that it can be used for the purpose of the shoot culture, root culture, and the callus culture. And this MS medium means it was invented by the two scientists named as T. Murashig and F. K. Soog in 1962. And hence the name is combined by the two scientists Murashig and Soog, that is MS medium. Okay, so while these two scientists they were working on the discovery of the plant growth regulators, they found this medium, and it is most commonly used medium in the tissue culture laboratory. And sometimes you can observe some numbers behind the MS medium, so which indicates the concentration of the sucrose in that medium. For example, you can say MS0. MS0 means it indicates the sucrose absence. Okay, so another bottle you can say MS10, so that indicates the presence of sucrose in that medium. Okay, so you can see some numbers behind the MS. The example I gave, MS0, that indicates the absence of a sucrose solution, and MS10, it indicates the presence of the sucrose in that medium. And the formulation is a blend of the nutrients like inorganic salts and vitamins, also the amino acids. So the purpose of the MS medium is it is used to induce the organogenesis, callus culture, micropropagation, and the cell suspension. So this medium, it helps in the organogenesis, callus culture, micropropagation, and cell suspension. Next one, that is B5 medium. This medium was developed by O.L. Gamborg in 1968, and he used the media for the callus and cell suspension during the culture. And this medium has higher concentration of the nitrate and potassium, and also a lower concentration of the ammonia. And potassium nitrate is useful in inducing the soybean root callus formation, and ammonium sulfate plays an essential role in the cell growth. And the purpose of the P5 media, it is used for the protoplast culture. Next one, that is N6 medium. So it was formulated by the Chu and used for the cereal anther culture. Okay, so it was defined to improve the formation, growth, and differentiation of the pollens in the callus of rice. So mainly it is defined to improve the formation, growth, and differentiation of the pollen callus in the rice. And here in this medium, the concentration of the ammonium proved to be crucial for the development of the callus. So the main purpose of the N6 medium, it is used for the formation and the growth purpose, also for the differentiation of the pollens in the rice. Next one, that is Nitsch medium. Here this medium was developed by J.P. Nitsch in 1969 for the establishment of the in vitro anther culture of the Nicotina from the family of the Solanaceae. It was established, and it contains high concentration of the thymine and also the biotin and folic acid that supports the anther culture. And the main purpose for the niche medium, it is used in the in vitro anther culture. So we came to know about the phi medium, why they are used. So the White's medium, the main purpose, it is used for the root, callus as well as the shoot culture. Murashig, it is used for the organogenesis, callus culture, also the micropropagation and cell suspension. Bifa medium, it is used for the protoplast culture, and N6 medium, it is used only for the formation, growth and differentiation of the pollen in the rice, and Nist medium, it is used in the in vitro of the anther culture. And the culture medium for the growth of the cells consist components like inorganic components, vitamins, carbon sources, growth regulators, organic supplements, or you can say micro and micronutrients, amino acids and other solidifying agents. So these are the few components which are used in the culture medium. We have studied about the macro and micronutrients in previous semesters. The macronutrients, they include elements like nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, potassium, sulfur as well as the carbon. These are the elements which are required for the growth and development of the plant. Okay, so the macronutrients, they must be added in the medium by looking the concentration of the certain elements, and also same for the micronutrients. So the micronutrients include elements like iron, manganese, zinc, boron, copper and molybdenum. Okay, so these micronutrients are required in trace amount, and they play essential role in cell and tissue culture. And if we talk about the vitamins are synthesized by the plants in an inadequate quantity. Inadequate quantity means less quantity. And for this reason, the media cultures are supplemented with the vitamins. And vitamins like thiamine, riboflavin, pyridoxine, folic acid, para-aminobenzoic acid, vitamin E, biotin vitamin, ascorbic vitamin, they are used in the culture media. The most used vitamins are B1, B6 and nicotinic acid. B1 is nothing but thiamine vitamin, B6 is pyridoxine. So these are the few vitamins which are used in the culture media. And then if we talk about the amino acids, amino acids play a role in enhancement of the cell growth in the culture medium. Okay, so they play a role in the growth of the cells in the culture medium. Organic extracts, they also play a role in growth enhancement of the plant, and it includes the substance which are extracted from the natural source. They are coconut milk, yeast extract, orange juice and tomato juice. And the drawback of this organic extract is that they vary in quantity as well as the quality during the growth factors. Other components of the culture media are solidifying agents. They solidify the culture surface which supports the culture and growth. It's of two types, agar and gelatin. So these are the two solidifying agents which are used in the culture media. If we talk about the growth regulators, So they play essential role in the plant tissue culture. So the different metabolic activities in the plants are controlled by the different growth regulators, or they are known as plant hormones or phytohormones. And there are common plant hormones which are very familiar: auxins, gibberellins, cytokinins, ethylene, abscisic acid, which we will discuss in the upcoming slides. So the plant growth regulators, they are the tiny molecules that have tremendous effect on the plant's development. Okay. Next, the media preparation comes. How the preparation of media is done in the tissue culture. Firstly, we have to keep in mind that which type of powder we have to select, means which type of medium we have to select. So if we want that root must be cultured or shoot must be cultured, or also the callus, we have to select the whites medium. Okay. So if we want to culture the organogenesis or cell suspension, we have to choose the ms medium. Depending upon the which type of cell we have to grow, we have to select such type of the culture mediums. So if we want a protoplast to be cultured, we have to select the b5 media. Okay. So like that we have to select the medium. Example, we will take now, I want to grow the root culture. Okay. So I will select the whites medium now. So, firstly, we have to mix the powder with an appropriate amount of the water. Okay, so if you are mixing the medium with 1 liter, then we have to fill the beaker with 800 ml of distilled water. So firstly we have to mix the powder with the 1 liter. So for 1 liter medium we have to add in a beaker 800 ml of the distilled water. Then slowly begin adding the powdered medium. So the powdered medium is nothing but the whites medium plus water. Okay. Then we have to add this whites medium powder and water in the 800 ml of the distilled water. Okay. So then after that we have to add 30 grams of sucrose in that, and then we have to set the pH at 5 to 8, and we have to add the solidifying agent after that. The example, like we can take the agar, which is best for the solidifying agent, and you have to take the agar around 8 grams, and then we have to add few hormones, and we have to add 200 ml of the distilled water to that, and then the next process we have to autoclave the media. Okay. So autoclaving, which removes or kills the bacteria or viruses which are present in that explant. And then we have to add that melting media into the sterile tubes, and we have to make sure that each tube is labeled, and the media should fill up to the approximately third of the tubes, means level of the tubes. And lastly, the media should be left in sterile environment where it can be monitored until it can be used for the culture cells. So like this we will prepare the media. Firstly we have to choose the medium powder, and then we have to mix that powder with the water, and if that will become 1 liter, for that we have to add 800 ml of the distilled water. Then we have to add sugar, then we have to set the pH, then we have to add agar, hormones, and autoclave it, and then we have to add the melting media into the sterile tubes, and the tubes must be labeled, and then we have to keep that in the sterile environment, and we have to make sure until it can be used for the culture of the cells. And then here you can see the functions of the elements here, and you can refer this later. Moving towards the next topic, that is plant growth regulators. Okay, so they play essential role in the plant tissue culture, as I said previously, and they are tiny molecules that have a tremendous effect on the plant development. And the plants produce some of the natural growth regulators. They are also known as the phytohormones, and some of the cultivators give their plant an extra boost using the synthetic regulators. And we know that cytokinin, auxins, gibberellins, abscisic acids are a few of the plant growth regulators. And among these, the auxins and cytokinins are specifically the balance between two is very important in the organogenesis development in the tissue culture of the plants. Everybody knows that plant requires water, clean air and nutrition to grow and develop. So these factors like air, nutrition and water are also located outside of the plant and are therefore referred as the extrinsic factors. Okay, so the extrinsic factors are nothing but the air, nutrition and water. And the growth regulators and plant hormones are known as the intrinsic factors. Okay, so the intracellular genes and the chemicals are plant growth regulators and are therefore intrinsic factors that influences the plants are survival. There are synthetic growth regulators that can be added extrinsically to the plant. Okay, so now there are here you can see there are auxins, gibberellins, cytokinins, ethylene, as well as the abscisic acid. There are five recognized groups of the natural plant hormones. Okay, they are auxins, gibberellins, cytokinins, and ethylene abscisic acids. So, among these, the two most common plant growth regulators are auxins as well as the cytokinins. Now, we will discuss about the auxins and cytokinins. Later, we will discuss about the gibberellins, ethylene, and abscisic acid. The first one here you can see here. So, this is the auxins. So, auxins were discovered by the Francis Darwin and his father, the famous Charles Darwin. These auxins were the very first growth hormones to be discovered. So, the Francis Darwin and his father, Charles Darwin, observed how the grasses tend to grow towards the light. And on the closer examination, it became clear that the tip of the protective sheath in the grasses was indeed bending towards the light source. And this led the discovery of the auxins in the oat seedlings. And what does this auxins do? So the auxins, they help in cell division and enlargement. They also help in apical dominance and the dormancy of the seed, and they assist the cell division. And they also promote the flowering and balance and regulate the xylem differentiation, root initiation, shoot and root growth can be done by the auxins. And the plants produce natural types of the auxins. The indole butyric acid, that is known as IBA, and indole 3 acetic acid, that is known as IAA. So these auxins are typically produced in the root and stem of the plants. So if you want to add auxins to your plant, you should look for the synthetic auxins like 2,4-dichlorophenoxytic acid, that is 2,4-D, and naphthalene acetic acid, that is known as NAA. So this is about the auxins. So they help in root initiation, shoot growth, root growth, and help in the differentiation of the xylem, cell differentiation and cell division, apical dormancy and seed dormancy can be done with the help of the auxins. Next plant hormone is the cytokinin. So it is another important growth hormone. So here you can see I have mentioned cytokinins means more mitosis that leads to more cells and then there is a plant growth. Okay, so the cytokinin is typically produced in the areas where cell division takes place. Mainly in the plants, in the area of roots as well as the shoots. And the cytokinins assist the plant in many ways, and they help the plant produce new leaves, stimulate the lateral shoot areas, and then even they promote the leaf longevity. And what does this cytokinins do? So they can be used to delay the aging of the flowers as well as the leaves. Okay, then they stimulate the lateral bud growth and promote the cell division, help to overcome the apical dominance, and stimulate the lateral shoot growth. So the cytokinin's role is to delay the aging of the flowers and leaves, stimulate the lateral bud growth, and also they stimulate the lateral shoot growth, and promote the cell division, and then they help in to overcome the apical dominancy. So the cytokinins, these are the true cell division factors which are present in the plants, and the term cytokinin was proposed by the scientist named as Litham in 1963. Next one, that is gibberellin. So these gibberellins, the main effect of the gibberellins in the plant is to cause the stem elongation as well as the flowering. The gibberellins were discovered by the Japanese plant pathologist Kurosawa while working in the rice field. And there are different gibberellins named as GA1, GA2, go on till GA60. Okay, so on, and then GA3 is widely used by the scientists to show the growth promoting properties of the gibberellins. So there exist more than 80 different gibberellin compounds in the plants, but only gibberellic acid known as GA3, it is used to promote the properties of the gibberellins, that is the growth properties. Okay, then the gibberellins is used in the tissue culture to induce the organogenesis and particularly the adventitious root formations. So these gibberellins helps in elongation of the stem, then flowering, breaking dormancy, and also they help in flowering in long day plants. So what does this flowering in long day plant mean? So in the long day plants means the plants which grow well and develop their flowers only in the long days, and short day plants means the plants which develop and they get the flowers only in the short day period. So when these long day plants are sprayed by the gibberellins, they produce the flowers in short time. Next one, that is abscisic acid. So in plant tissue culture, it is used to help somatic embryogenesis, particularly during maturation and germination. So this abscisic acid, it is used in somatic embryogenesis and particularly when the germination and during the maturation period of that plant. And this abscisic acid, it was discovered by Kahns and Endicott in 1963 while they were working on the physiological studies of the cotton balls and leaves. This abscisic acid play a important role in decreasing the RNA and protein synthesis in the leaves. So it is found to decrease the RNA and protein synthesis in the leaves, and it promotes the absorption of the leaves, flowers, and the fruits. It prevents the elongation of the shoot and keeps the embryos and the buds dormant. It inhibits the development of the embryo in seeds and also the cell division and cell elongation. Last one, that is ethylene. So it is a gaseous plant hormone. Okay, so the ethylene, it is a gaseous plant hormone. Usually ethylene is not used in the plant tissue culture. Okay, so ethylene is apparently not required for the normal vegetative growth. However, it can have a significant impact on the development of the root and shoot, but we will not use the ethylene in the plant tissue culture. Okay, so the role of the ethylene is it stimulates the formation of the adventitious roots, and it is effective in inducing the flowering in the pineapple plants, and it inhibits the sprouting of the potatoes, and it stimulates feeding of some flowers, and also it promotes the senescence of the leaves and their abscission. So this was all about the sterilization techniques, also about the culture media preparation and the growth regulators. I hope you guys understood well. Thank you.